March has come to an end, and it was a pretty good month for movies. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 9 movies or theatrically released things that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of all the March new releases that you saw. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. And if I missed a new release that you think I would enjoy, let me know about it down below in the comments section. One quick announcement. This weekend, I am at MegaCon with Austin Burke, John Flickinger, Cody Leach, Chris Parker, 3C Films himself as well. On our stage will be Coy Genro as well as Perry Nemiroff. My crew of guys will be leading 4 different panels over 3 days from Friday to Sunday. All the details about that are down below in the description. If you are into the movie YouTube space, you do not want to miss MegaCon this weekend. We would love to see you there. We would love to meet you, shake your hand, talk with you, take a picture with you. Details are down below. Let's get started. Not ranked, but I did see it. Demon Slayer World Tour. Now, this was a Demon Slayer fan event that came out in March of this year in theaters. I did go with a group of friends to go see it, so I'm discussing it here, but it's a fan event, not a movie, so it's first thing I'm talking about, but it's not last on the list or anything like that because I couldn't possibly begin to review this, rank this in any sort of meaningful sense because it's not designed to be consumed in this fashion. It's not a standalone story in any stretch of the imagination. This is 3 episodes of the show squished together, or played back to back, not even really squished together, just played back to back. 2 episodes closing out the last season. So it starts off in the 3rd act of one story, and then it plays the 1st episode of the new season. So it's the end of one story and the beginning of another, and not the middle of anything. And so I went in, I was invited to go by my buddy Andy. I took him up on it. I thought it would be fun, and perhaps I'd have an interesting perspective as someone that it's never seen Demon Slayer, the show, before. And I thought, knowing nothing, hadn't seen a trailer, not knowing what it was, that it was going to be a kind of standalone story with a beginning, a middle, and while it would be in the middle of their mythology, so of course I'd be diving into the deep end, I did think it would be a story that I could follow. It's not. It's not. Like, it just dives in, and it's like stuff's happening. I don't know who is what. I don't understand the mythology. I don't understand why they're doing anything, because this is not a story. This is the end of a story and the beginning of another. And it literally plays the opening song and the closing credits 3 times. Like, it literally just episodes played in order without even super cutting them together. So I was super confused while I was watching it. So I did watch it. I did experience it. This is not a review. This is not me placing it in last, because that would not be a fair read on what actually took place. But actually in last place, 65, and this is an early contender for biggest disappointment of the year. This is a movie from the writers of A Quiet Place, which I thought was both a great script as well as a great concept. And so the idea of them doing a new story about dinosaurs, and it's a sci-fi adventure, it had my attention. And add to the mix, Adam Driver as the leader of the story, him battling dinosaurs 65 million years in the past. I was like, this could actually be pretty cool. Then the movie didn't do any press screenings. Red flag. Literally, no press screenings. No one seemed to have seen the movie prior to opening night. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Went to go see it, and it was just such a waste of everything. Everything present. Right in the first minute of the movie, it sets up kind of this interesting, potentially interesting mythology about what's actually going on with the plot here, where, like, this isn't really a spoiler because it's the first minute of the movie. Adam Driver's not a human. He's an alien from some alien culture 65 million years in the past that is doing these travel mission things involving his daughter, or leaving his daughter to help fund her medical bills. This is the first 2 minutes of the film. That's the setup. It's aliens 65 million years in the past that just happen to look like humans. And from there, it just turns into a very generic get from point A to point B movie. It does nothing with this mythology about these aliens. You don't learn anything about them. By making them aliens, you make it so Adam Driver doesn't know what dinosaurs are. So there's no awe and wonder about the dinosaurs or exploration of what they're doing 65 million years in the past. They might as well just be alien monster things. Makes no difference. So it neither explores him as an alien nor explores dinosaurs. So even when it comes to the dinosaur stuff, there aren't nearly as many dinosaurs in this movie about Adam Driver punching dinosaurs as you would expect. So it doesn't overstay its welcome. There is enough chases in it, so it's not just like dreadful, but it wastes every possible opportunity from beginning to end to do anything interesting with the concept. Number 7, Shazam Fury of the Gods. And to be perfectly clear, there's a big jump between 65 and Shazam Fury of the Gods. I had fun with this movie. I gave it a positive on Rotten Tomatoes, and I stand by that. But it is generic. It still delivers humor, a little bit of heart, and kind of more mythology and more fleshed out kind of villains with their motivation that ties into the lore than the first Shazam film. So there's a lot of things I still did have a lot of fun with this film.
You are very menacing. I just want you to know that.
But I also feel like what made Shazam stick out is that it was big as a superhero movie. And it was about all the little hijinks that teenage boys would get into if they had the powers of a superhero. And it leaned into that really well. And especially that initial story about Billy finding family was very poignant in ways that I wasn't expecting. And this movie, I feel like, trades all that unique charm about a kid's superhero and replaces it with kind of more generic superhero stuff. As my buddy Cody Leach put it, good guys in capes punching bad guys in capes in a downtown setting. We've seen it before. So how much you enjoy this film probably depends on how burnt out you are on superhero movies. I'm not fully burnt out, so I still had fun with it.
I just threw a truck at a dragon. I love my life.
Zachary Levi's still charming. There's things that I still dug about it, but definitely a step back from the first movie and a move towards something more generic. Next up, Champions. This is a Woody Harrelson sports movie that in a lot of ways plays the formula of the coach that's not great with people, gets himself into trouble, and gets stuck coaching a team that he's not excited to coach. And in the case of this one, it's a group of special needs people with a basketball team, and he's trying to coach them, take them off to the Special Olympics. It's the Mighty Ducks. It's several other movies with this exact same formula, and it's a pretty effective version of it. That it's charming, it's heartfelt, and it follows the formula, but it follows the formula well. And since this is kind of a genre that we don't get of a lot of much anymore, it's not a type of film that they crank out like they did back in the 90s. It's refreshing to kind of get a straightforward, uplifting, in certain ways, wholesome sports film. And in fact, I probably would have had it 2 or 3 spots higher up on this list, but it felt a little bit odd to me. It was directed by one of the two Farrelly brothers. They're known for doing, these crass R-rated comedies or crass, very hard PG-13 comedies. And the movie's kind of filled with fairly crass humor while telling a very wholesome story. And I don't think those two things fully complemented each other. And it's not that I'm totally opposed to having any sex jokes, dick jokes, things like that, but this one, it was such a sweet, wholesome story, and also nonstop boner jokes, like literally things like that. You're like, oh, okay, that is a little bit much. And maybe it was the context. I went to go see it with my mother. That was a little bit weird that we're laughing at those jokes together. But so like I said, I enjoyed it. It did make me laugh. I thought that blend, I don't think that was the best direction to take it, but overall, it hit the right note. Number 5, Operation Fortune, the latest Guy Ritchie film, and this movie was actually supposed to come out over a year ago, and then it just never came out. Like they put a trailer out, said, hey, coming out on this date. And then that date passed and the movie never came out. And then out of the blue, like a week before February ended, they're like, by the way, the movie's coming out in a week. And they just threw it out in theaters. And having seen the movie now, I'm not really sure why. I heard some rumors that some of it had to do with a plot line that kind of tied into Ukraine and invasions, and it felt in poor taste to release the movie in light of everything going on in Ukraine. Okay, maybe. And then seeing the movie, that didn't fully add up with the film they put out. I don't know, maybe they did some reshoots or changed some dialogue and subplots in overdubbing or something like that. But I watched the movie, and I thought it was a fun spy film. It's basically Guy Ritchie's version of Mission Impossible and James Bond. So it very much has Guy Ritchie type characters and a lot of actors that show up very frequently in Guy Ritchie films. Of course, Hugh Grant, Jason Statham, even Josh Hartnett's joining into that team. And so you have a lot of those kind of classic Ritchie-isms in there with the dialogue, the way that it kind of works. And then on the plot level, it's kind of about, assembling your team of spies to get the mission done, getting instructions from the guy up above. And then it has that very much that suave James Bond, exotic location. I guess that's in the Mission Impossible films too, but this one kind of felt like it leaned more into the extravagance and the characters enjoying the extravagance more in the James Bond flavor than necessarily the Mission Impossible flavor. So blending those all together, I had a good time with it. Now, I thought Aubrey Plaza, who I actually really enjoy, I thought she was a bit miscast here. She has a specific bag of tricks that she's normally really good at. And this was a different type of character. And I kind of appreciate getting to see her do something different, but also I don't think it necessarily complemented her skills. And it just felt kind of off, a little bit off, where everyone else felt like they're in their groove. And maybe that was me. And I'm just so used to seeing awkward Aubrey Plaza, so that now she's doing something different that it threw me off. But it did throw me off a little bit. And as a Guy Ritchie movie, it's awfully subdued with his directorial style. Like the writing, it has his characters and his dialogue, but it's very subdued when it comes to his hyperactive editing, visual flair. And I think it could have served the film well. But this feels like a movie that, given how they just kind of like abandoned it and dumped it, you think when that happens, oh, this is going to be a stinker. And I didn't think it was at all. I thought it was fun and maybe just needed a little bit more Guy Ritchie energy to it. But I think this could have been a fun little Guy Ritchie franchise if things had played out differently and they'd marketed and released it properly. Number 4, Scream 6. I've said it many times before. Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time, and the Scream franchise is one of my favorite horror franchises of all time, and it's one of the most consistent horror franchises of all time. And I would say Scream 6 adds to that reputation as just a very consistent franchise that keeps finding interesting new ways to change up the formula just enough, have just enough new commentary in there to continually keep it fresh and entertaining. One of the big things that helped this movie is they moved the setting to New York City, in which case New York City itself is a kind of a character in and of itself, where there's all these unique things about the urban setting, apartment living, subways, that add kind of these new opportunities for Ghostface to kill people, as well as for Ghostface to be kind of more outrageous and audacious in the attacks that take place. The kills here are more vicious and brutal. Loved seeing Kirby come back and what they did with the character. And she was a high schooler when we last saw her, and now she's 30 years old and has a career. And so showing that passage of time with the franchise, I love it when we're able to do that with characters.
You know you're like the 10th guy to try this, right? It never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
Goes a bit off the rails in the third act. I know, I think I just kind of accept with this franchise that the big twist reveals are going to get kind of silly and outlandish. This one gets very silly and outlandish and a little bit too familiar. So probably held it back a little bit in kind of, especially with time to process, like, okay, yeah, that wasn't great. But the journey to get to the third act was everything that I want from a Scream movie. Real quick before I share my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of the March new releases that you saw. And if I missed something that you think I'd like, let me know about it down below. Also, remember, I'm going to be at MegaCon this weekend with Cody Leach, Austin Burke, John Flickinger, 3C, Chris Parker himself, Koy Januro, Perry Nemiroff are also going to be there. It's just going to be an amazing weekend. If you're into the movie YouTube space, and I imagine you are because you're watching this video, you want to be there. In third place, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Now, this is a movie that when I first heard about it, I was like rolling my eyes. Right, this didn't go so well when it first happened. And then I saw that it was the guys that did Game Night from a few years back were making this movie, writing and directing it. And if you didn't see Game Night, great little adventure comedy about people doing a game night that gets out of hand and gets crazy. It's funny. The action is handled much better than it should be, considering that it's a comedy and it's about a game night. So naturally, the creators of that film probably are into game nights, such as Dungeons and Dragons. So it seemed like a great pairing. And so I started getting good feelings about this one. And then the early buzz coming out of South by Southwest was great. It literally debuted coming out of its premiere with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think since then it's dropped to 90%, which is fantastic for a blockbuster like this. Went to go see it this past weekend with Austin Burke and John Flickinger, and we all had a lot of fun with it. It has all the adventure and fantasy that you expect. It has all the quips and one-liners you're thinking are going to be there.
Sounds lovely.
Quite the opposite.
I know, I was being ironic.
But they work even better in the movie than they do even in the trailer. When you're invested in the characters and understand where they're coming from, the line delivery works even better. But it has more heart than I was expecting and more kind of character arcs. Everyone is kind of given a journey to be on, where there's something about them that while they are this outlandish fantasy character, there's something human there. There's something to grab hold of that we can relate to that's used as a character arc throughout the journey of the film. And so a movie that turned out to be so much better than it kind of had any right to be. It's so much more fun than I was expecting. And I think it's a movie that I think audiences are really going to enjoy it. I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out to be kind of like this year's Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, a movie that people kind of were discounting and writing off when it first came out. And then people, once they saw it, kind of loved it and thought it was this great fun adventure. I'm expecting that for this film. And it's much better than a whole bunch of the other blockbusters we've gotten this year. Our runner-up, Creed 3. The Rocky franchise is one of my absolute favorite franchises of all time, and I thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 Creed films. And with where Creed 2 ended, it made sense to me that you could do a Creed film without Rocky in it. And also the themes of the Creed franchise as a whole, it's all about kind of making a name for yourself, embracing your legacy, but also standing out on your own. So the idea of doing a third film without Rocky and letting Michael B. Jordan direct it, that sounded like that makes sense in light of what these movies are all about. And the movie itself delivered. It hits all the beats that you want in a movie in this franchise, but they found a way to tell still a fresh new story in this world by having the main opponent tie back into Adonis's youth in a way that we've never really had anything like that before in the Rocky Creed franchise. So it was something new and different. And it also created a scenario where we could have a much more developed opponent in the film who you can understand why he feels wrong and why he thinks what he's doing is right in light of the journey that he's been on, that gives even our villain his own arc while having our main character having everything he's processing through. Jonathan Majors is just a force to be reckoned with, that he can play all the different facets of it while also just being this intimidating figure that would be a worthy opponent for Adonis Creed. So it's got everything that I want from a Rocky movie or Creed movie while doing something new and different with it. It's in particular, Michael B. Jordan brought some interesting new directorial choices into it. I still haven't decided if I like him or not, but he did something different and interesting, which I do appreciate. So another knockout for this knockout franchise. But easily coming in at number 1 is John Wick Chapter 4. And to be perfectly clear, this is my number 1 movie for the year thus far. We're 3 months into the year, and without question, this is clearly the front runner, where they took all the best elements of the previous 3 John Wick films, the emotional stakes of the first movie, the world building of all of them, but the second one really kind of opened the world up, and then the just phenomenal, crazy, wow-inducing action of the third film, and they crafted this action movie epic. And in doing so, they created a movie where every single action sequence stands out in your mind. It's very memorable, and they're filled with stunt work where you do not know how they were able to do these stunts, where you'll have a fight and a chase in the middle of traffic, where it's a long, wide take where you see everything that takes place, where 2 characters interact with the environment around them. They weave and fight through cars, and then one of them gets hit by a car, all in one shot, all in one take. And you know you can't just run people over and have them fight in traffic. So there's some sort of VFX going on here. There's some sort of trickery happening, but you also know you're watching real stunt work where a person really was hit by a car and 2 people really were fighting. And it's that seamless blending of those 2 things that just creates something special. The long takes and staging it, the choreography, as well as the camera movements and the VFX team staging it to perfection, where you feel actual movie magic. And the whole movie's like that. And it's not just the action, though. It has a story with emotional investment, like the first movie, with interesting world building, where every character you meet has a backstory. Everything feels developed enough to be its own story worth telling. And it comes to a satisfying conclusion to the John Wick saga as we've known it up to this point in time. So everything I want from an action movie, it delivers all of it. So without question, this isn't just my number 1 March movie. It is currently my number 1 movie for the year. So it comes in, well, obviously at number 1. Let me know your picks down below in the comment section. Let me know your ranking, all that fun stuff. Let me know if I missed a movie that you think I would like. Also, remember, I'm going to be at MegaCon this weekend with a bunch of my YouTube friends. Details are down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.